All right, guys, welcome back to the John and Chris Show. Today, we are excited because we get to have a special guest with us. That's right, our cousin, Ben. Won't say his last name so I don't get in trouble.
That's right.
There we go. Hey, man, so glad you're here with us. You doing good?
Man, I'm doing great. How about y'all boys?
Doing fantastic. I'm sorry. All I can think of is growing up, I literally thought his dad was a spitting image of Larry Bird growing up. He still got that mustache. Still got the Larry Bird mustache. I love seeing that.
That's my favorite team.
There you go. Oh, he's a fan. There we go. Hey, we got to bring on the basketball expert here. We're bringing on our cousin Ben here to talk a little bit of NBA and some college basketball with us. So I got to extend it to you guys. Chris, you've been adamant about a few things. You were not happy with what the Rockets had done as far as hiring their coach. You were not a big Steve Silas guy. You were kind of thinking they should have gone for a bigger name, Ty Lue or who else. But then we see this week that they trade Russell Westbrook for John Wall in a first-round pick. What are your thoughts on what the Rockets have going on?
Well, I'm going to stay firm on this from the very beginning. We talked about this, and I don't think Russell Westbrook was the problem. I don't think Chris Paul was the problem. At some point, we've got to ask the question: is Harden the problem? And so here we go again. And it really didn't do anything because you look for scoring and prowess, and they just did basically a tit for tat trade as far as what it is contract wise. It'd be interesting to see what happens with John Wall out there in Houston and what happens with Russell Westbrook next to Bradley Beal out in Washington. So it'll be interesting how this thing plays out and what Houston decides to do with James Harden. I know they're sticking firm in it. And I'm going to go ahead and just put out there right now for this week. Just for this week, I made a special announcement. Brooklyn, not New Jersey, Brooklyn.
This is an ongoing thing, Ben. He calls them the New Jersey Nets every time.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was wondering. I thought like maybe he had a baby reveal, or that's what he's going to call it.
Brooklyn is going to have a baby, and they're going to trade some people back and forth because they're going to have to do it to stay up with the Lakers to go after James Harden.
What do you think about that trade, Ben?
All right, so I like it. I definitely don't like it for Houston. I mean, for one thing, you bring in somebody that's, to Chris's point, James Harden's the issue. If you've ever played ball with somebody and all they do is ISO and you just watch them the whole game, you're not going to be involved. Like, you don't want to play defense. I mean, you don't want to do anything. CP3 went to OKC. What did he do? He put up good numbers, led them to the playoffs, had a good season. Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, I mean, is that the best backcourt in the NBA right now?
Absolutely not.
Well, you got Portland out there. With,
yeah. I say there, I mean, Clay's hurt, so you don't have the Splash Bros.
I would say the best backcourt probably is CP3 and Devin Booker out in Phoenix.
Shout out to Moss Point, Mississippi. Devin Booker. That's gonna be my 2K team.
There you go.
Yeah, those boys. But I mean, I like the trade. But yeah, definitely not for Houston and Washington's. I still don't know if that puts them. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. They might get out of the first round. I don't really know much past that.
Well, let's just go ahead and admit that the Wizards did not make this trade to make them more of a viable playoff team. They did this for ticket sales. They've been paying $40 million a year for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. They wanted to get somebody who has star power, some cachet, just to be on the floor. And people will show up to watch Russell Westbrook do something crazy, whether it's fight a fan, dunk on somebody's face, or whatever. I don't know. But they're going to show up to watch Russell Westbrook, and they haven't had anybody to show up because Bradley Beal's a great player, but he's not a captivating star. He's not somebody you just show up to watch. So I get it from both sides why they made the trade. Washington needed they needed something new in the locker room. Absolutely, Houston did as well. I did see a report, which I'll be honest with you, I think that Houston probably won the trade regardless, just because they get the first round pick to go with it. But I did see the report coming out that the new coach Stephen Silas is saying he's just giving he's giving James Harden space. Like, they made this one trade, they're bringing in John Wall, but he still isn't really talking to James Harden whatsoever. He's trying to give him some space. So what What do you think about that, Chris? Harden's still salty. Obviously, he still wants out the door.
Well, I think what's interesting about it is that if you're an outside coach coming in who doesn't know your player, I see giving it some space. But you're a guy that's been in the locker room with him. You guys are buddies at some level. There was some connection there, was there not?
There was a little bit of a connection maybe, but recently Silas was with – and he might have been a previous assistant coach, but last year he was with the Mavericks, not the –
but I thought there was a connection between the two, and so that's where I'm kind of going – I saw the same report coming out that, he's giving them space. If this is your star player, let's go do dinner. Let's just talk about what you want. Let me hear from you on what you're wanting. I know you came out, said you want to go out to Brooklyn. Got it right again. Just want to throw it out there. You want to go out to Brooklyn. There's a report out at Brooklyn. KD said, I never spoke to him about coming to New Jersey. Crap. There it is again. Got to go to Brooklyn.
It slipped.
There it is. I was like 2 for 3. I've never talked about coming to Brooklyn. So I don't know that I give him the space. I don't. I want to have a conversation. I want to see what you're feeling. The players were a little upset with, let the GM go, let the coach go, all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know, what's going on out there in Houston.
I think they all just needed something new. What
Houston, we have a problem.
That's the truth. Houston does have a problem without a doubt.
And the problem's James Harden.
And the funny part is they could move him. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I think they could move him, but I think the owner's hesitant to move Harden because Harden, whether he's a star that can get you a ringer or not, Harden is a guy who can bring in people to watch games.
Right.
I'm not a Harden guy whatsoever. I have been adamant about that from the get-go. I believe James Harden is trash, and I would not want him on my team. He's a team killer. But he has proven that people will come out to watch him play. So that's why the owner's kind of hesitant to ship him off because the NBA rules, you have to get matching money back. So if you're trading a guy who's – Harden's making – between $35 and $40 million a year.
It's like $41 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So the amount of money that you're going to have to bring back, and you're obviously going to be bringing back bad contracts. So do they want to go that hard into a full blow up rebuild kind of atmosphere? You and I have talked about this before, Chris. I thought Houston should have done that all along. I heard that the Warriors called to see if they talk about Harden.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they would offer besides probably James Wiseman and Andrew Wiggins. If I'm the Rockets, I take it.
But the money, there has to be some, like you're saying, the money. That's why if Philadelphia got to the conversation, it had to be Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons just to match up the money. And Doc's already said, we're going to play a year under this system. I want to see these guys play. And Philadelphia went out and had a strong free agency and did some pretty big things.
Great trades.
Yeah, for that roster. And then you get over to Brooklyn, and you've got a whole lot of young talent. But Brooklyn has said for 2 to 3 years that they like the rise of their young stars. Was it Dinwiddie?
I don't know if they're actually going to be able to hold on to Spencer Dinwiddie.
Right, but I mean, he would have to be included in the trade. There's a lot of young talent come back. I do think if he goes anywhere, it's got to be to Brooklyn. If KD and Kyrie are on board because of how strong the free agency's been for LA.
Hey,
all these teams have got to make moves.
If you want to talk conspiracy theories, that might explain why not the Jets, Lord have mercy, the Brooklyn Nets, why they gave Joe Harris 4 years, $75 million contract, because they needed somebody to, build up their contract trades.
Yeah.
That was back in the day where trades would be crazy. Do you guys remember there was a trade, and I wish I could find it. I got to Google it. But there was a trade a while back. I think the Lakers made the trade where they wanted to get, I think it was Pau Gasol. To get Pau Gasol, what they did is they signed Keith Van Horn to like a 1 year, $9 million contract. Keith Van Horn was basically retired. He just hadn't turned in the paperwork yet. He never played another game, but they signed him to like this heavy contract just so they could trade him and then get back a star in return. And that's when, the shady NBA money's happening. And I really believe that's probably what's happening because I'll be honest with you, the contracts that we're seeing being signed by these guys, the contract years ago that Alan Crabb signed, Alan Crabb was garbage, but he signed like a $50-something million contract to play. And I don't understand NBA money.
that's like,
I really
yeah.
don't.
Evan Turner got paid a
Bro,
couple years back.
he's still getting paid probably. And I don't
Right.
understand it whatsoever. Like, he had no athleticism from day one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the ones he left Boston. I was like, oh, yeah, good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So another good for them is what are y'all doing in Charlotte? I don't know who y'all's team is, but y'all signed Gordon Hayward.
Hayward. Hey, that was one of those situations that we're gonna. Michael Jordan overpaid because he doesn't know how to build a team.
And let go and waived our other guy.
Batum. Well, that one made sense. Batum is the exact same thing that Hayward was a guy who played really well. He was not an overall amazing athlete. What he was a Swiss Army knife that could do a little bit of everything, but they severely overpaid for Batum. We are severely overpaying for Gordon Hayward, but that's the only way you can get a guy like that to come to Charlotte is if you severely overpay. So right. I'm kind of confused on a lot of steps that they're taking.
Right.
I said from the get-go, I don't know how I feel about them drafting Ball. I really don't. I'm thinking he's going to be more of a social media star than he is going to be a star on the court.
You already have you got Graham and Rozier already, right?
Yeah, so they overpaid for Scary Terry. They overpaid for him too. But that's the only way you can get people to come to Charlotte. I mean, Lord knows they tried to draft Kobe, and Kobe said, "You better trade me because I won't show."
Yeah. And here's a question. Let me ask you guys. Ben, you are, you like Boston to some extent. A little bit.
Yeah, that's my team, and then the Pelicans number 2.
All right. So let's talk about Boston for a second. Since we got you on here, there's rumors about they floated Kemba Walker out there to Chicago, floated him out there to another team. What is your take on Kemba? What is your take on what they're doing in Boston? Are they going to make any moves, or what do you think?
No, I see Kemba staying. He's such a glue guy for us. When we had Kyrie, who was, it worked out good for one season. It was kind of a nightmare for the rest. Kemba's a glue guy. But I mean, I don't know what we're trying to do right now. We got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's really all I see. And then Danny Ainge, Trader Danny, is going to get us like 30 picks for the 2030 draft. It seems like all we do is get more draft picks.
He's the Bill Belichick of the NBA.
Yes. I mean, like I'm looking, like I look at our roster, and it's like we got Tristan Thompson, who's I don't know, he hasn't been good since he played with Kobe. Am I right or wrong? Or
LeBron.
No.
LeBron.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of guys that haven't been good since they played with LeBron.
Yeah, you can say that for everybody. And then you got Jeff Teague. I don't know what he's really. I mean,
but they probably got Jeff Teague on the cheap though.
They did.
Yeah, they did. But Kemba, I see Kemba sticking. I just don't see. I don't see, unless Jason Tatum just has an MVP type year, which he's not there yet. I just don't see us making it past the conference finals.
That makes sense. I mean, the East is getting slightly tougher. Miami's doing some things. Obviously, they had an amazing season, but they lose Jay Crowder. And
they're playing a little holdout right now too to see what's going to happen with.
And then Giannis. I think Giannis has probably got the most help out of everybody in the Eastern Conference when he got Jrue Holiday when they traded for him.
That's huge.
I don't know. I see what Danny Ainge is trying to do. I think, he made a smart move by getting rid of Enes Kanter, trading him back to Portland, bringing in just straight muscle for Tristan Thompson. I think Kanter's one of those guys that, he wants rebounds and blocks and all that, but he really wants to score too. And when he doesn't get the ball, he gets a little upset. Thompson's not that guy. Thompson, all he cares about is W's and rebounds. And so he's the perfect guy to play there. Right. But I did see that Danny Ainge made a comment about – somebody asked about Kemba's knee, and Danny Ainge flat out said that we'll see in January. So I don't think Kemba's even going to start the season playing. Like he's injured, and I don't know if that's just because he's a small guy playing at a big man sport.
Right. I mean, and I think that's a big reason why we got Teague right now too.
Absolutely, you got to have some depth behind him because they figured that out when they were having to play Marcus Smart so much at the point. Smart is a fantastic player, but he's not a guy who can play point guard full time. He just can't.
No.
He's a glue guy without a doubt. He's a guy that, you want him on your team, not playing against him because, he's
the opposite of James Harden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's why I like him.
Playing pickup ball. Yeah, that's the guy you want. But yeah, that's kind of. I don't know where we're going to end up. But we'll see. Hopefully, we'll have the luck of the Irish.
I love it. Hey, so Chris, your Lakers, since when we were growing up, you were a big Bulls guy, but since Michael's not there anymore, now you're a Lakers guy. So you're not bandwagoning at all, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So your Lakers, they did some big things this week in some contracts, dude. They are shelling out some money. So what do you think about them extending LeBron 2 years, $85 million, and then they give AD the max 5-year, $190?
My assumption is that the contract, especially LeBron, spoke more to LeBron's plans than it did, and the Lakers' plans more than it's more or less what they didn't say by what they did say. So what I'm saying that is LeBron is only signed up for a 2-year, where AD signed up for a 5-year with he can opt out after 4, I believe it is. Yeah. So we know LeBron's coming to his prime, and at some point
coming to his end.
Yeah.
Not his prime.
Yeah. Coming to
if LeBron's coming into his prime now, we need to test that Joker.
We are in trouble. Yeah.
No, we need to see if that Joker's on the cream or whatever Barry Bonds was on.
He's on that Ray Lewis deer antler sperm.
That part of that Tom Brady, whatever it is the
avocado. Don't blame the avocado.
Yeah.
Avocado. Keto.
I think what you're seeing is that we're seeing at some point, what LeBron sold and Lakers sold AD on was that this would become AD's team. Yeah. And so, only for a little while was AD going to take a back seat, because in every competitor is that whole idea. I think the same thing that we're seeing in Brooklyn. If what KD said rings true, as much as him and James Harden are close, it didn't work in Oklahoma City, if we all recall, when they were together. And if anything, James, I love you, buddy, but I don't think it's going to work out here in Brooklyn. And so, because KD, he caught flack for jumping ship going to Golden State. He comes over here. He does join with Kyrie, but they're trying to make a name for themselves out in Brooklyn. These guys want to be the guy. And I think that's what we see from AD. He knows this is going to become his team. He's going to give it 2 years beyond after what LeBron's contract is. LeBron will probably come back and sign 1-year deals after this anyways, depending on how he's feeling. But I liked it. I thought it was great for the Lakers. I do think they need to get one more piece. Especially if Brooklyn goes and does get James Harden, they're going to need another piece.
No, I don't think so. You don't have to worry about if say Brooklyn trades and gets James Harden.
Yeah.
Once again, we said that they had to give up a lot of stuff in order to get Harden, which means you've just depleted your entire roster. So you're now basing your entire thing on 3 ball handlers and only 1 ball. They're going to self-destruct. They're not even going to get out of the East. The Lakers are only worried about the West, I can promise you. They're worried about what's happening across the hall with the Clippers, what the Suns are doing. They're probably not worried about the Warriors since Klay's not there. Mm-hmm. They're worried about the West. I can promise you they're not concerned at all with the East.
Hey, I second that motion. They're not yeah, I mean, their depth. I mean, if you look at them, they got Schroeder. They still got Gasol. They got Wesley Matthews. Dude, their team. They got 45-year-old Jared Dudley still shooting spot up jumpers.
Didn't we watch him at Boston College growing up as kids, guys?
Yes, we had them long braids.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But I mean, and to John's point, there's only one basketball, and out there, I just don't see KD, Kyrie, and James Harden coexisting. I don't see it. I don't see it, and I don't know if it's going to happen.
That's true, because they still haven't made the trade yet, and I don't know. I think Brooklyn, if they're smart, they hold out and they make Houston sweat, and because the longer you make Houston wait and the longer you go, the more you're going to get, the less you're going to have to give as far as substantial players. You've got to make Houston uncomfortable. I mean, this is just business tactics at this point. It's not even about basketball. It's about stressing out the owner in Houston, stressing out the coach, the GM. I don't know who the GM is, if they even hired a guy yet. So that's what Brooklyn, if they're smart, that's what they're going to do. So I believe that, because Patriots proved that if you just wait out, you can get somebody like Cam Newton on the cheap, even though it's a bad signing. Still saying it, not supposed to be talking about this sport at this moment, but I'm still holding out. Awful signing, mad about it.
Well, I will say this, John, too, that, to your question about LA and what they did. Pelinka did a great job. I think that there's a lot banking on that the salary cap is going to come back and increase, and especially in 22, 23, that season. Why? Because you've got, in that year alone, $85 million of the salary cap tied up with 2 players.
Well, but what you're seeing is that what you're seeing all the time with those in that situation with LeBron, consistently you're seeing guys, Wesley Matthews.
Yeah.
You're seeing guys like Wesley Matthews who
$3
still
million,
have
that's it.
that's what I'm saying. Just enough in the tank
Yeah.
to be a great player, but he's coming in at even less than a veteran minimum or coming in at a veteran minimum. And I think at this point, Pelinka and these guys understand that, hey, we can win with LeBron, AD, and scrubs.
Yep.
And LeBron's proven that. If you give him 1 or 2 guys, I mean, that's exactly why Marc Gasol left Toronto to go to LA and stuff like that. Because I guarantee you, he's not getting paid monster contract. Mm-hmm. Schroeder's on a 1-year, like $15 million deal. Who knows what he resigns for, if he even resigns. I mean, he's on a tryout right now. So he's got to prove himself to whether or not LeBron's going to say, yeah, give him that contract, or no, let him walk. Because LeBron's quick on that, man. He's as much as people say that, Pelinka's the GM and all this kind of stuff like that, or Rich Paul, supposedly LeBron's agent, is doing all this and that. Bro, LeBron is pulling the strings.
And
Clutch
AD's agent.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Rich Paul is the agent, but LeBron has ownership in the company.
Yep.
And that's his best friend. Come on, man. LeBron is playing this like on the dirty, like without a doubt. Like
he's a great
controlling.
businessman. I mean, you can say what you want to say. I mean, the money that he's making. I mean, you're talking 2 years, $85 million, not counting endorsement deals, shoe deals, all that stuff. $85 million for 2 years.
Do you see his career earnings at the end of this contract? His career earnings is like $485 million off of his NBA contracts, not including his sponsorships and ownerships and endorsements and all that. He wasn't joking around.
Space Jam coming up too.
Oh my God! I don't even want to talk about it, man. That's why has he got to steal everything?
I know. Jordan's classic.
I feel like he said he wanted to be the first athlete to eclipse $1 billion. I think he can do it.
I do have a question about Space Jam though.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So, do you think he'll jump ship and play for the bad guys? Because LeBron likes to do that.
Since LeBron likes to do that, he wants to win, bro. Whatever, he'll kill anybody to win.
Bugs is asking for that max extension. LeBron's like, nah, screw that. I'm gonna play for these aliens. I can't do it by myself.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you where my mind went. The whole debate has been who's better, LeBron or Jordan. And now LeBron's chance. Let's see what happens in Space Jam. Does he go to the dark side, play for the aliens, and once and for all? Who knows what happens?
He can't do it by himself.
You're right.
That's exactly what he's proven. I'll give you that. Hey, I got a question for you guys, just off topic, so to speak. Yeah. Have you guys seen the city jerseys that they're pushing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a big fan of the Heat one and the Hornets one.
Anybody see Boston's yet? Looks like the banners.
No, I have not seen Boston city jersey. I got to pull this up.
Yeah, they're like on the top 5 of the worst looking jerseys. The Boston is.
Well, see, we always just have the most bland. It's like we're going to
bland.
Yeah.
That's what it is. City jersey is just going to be all right. You guys like green and white? Guess what? We're going to do green and white again, and we're not going to put any different fonts. It's like, let's go Times New Roman on our city jersey.
That's awesome.
Everybody's out there with the wingdings or whatever they call it, and we're out here with Times New Roman.
This ought to sell a whole lot of jerseys.
Oh my gosh! What is he said? The wingdings.
Yeah,
we're off the rails once again.
Yeah, Miami's got they took center stage. I understand with their city.
Well, they had the Miami Vice ones a couple years ago. Those were like so sweet.
Yeah, they got some good ones. I'm looking at the Suns. Actually, looks pretty neat. It just says the Valley on theirs. Man, I'm looking at some of these. Some of these are awesome, and some of these are like, what are you thinking?
Fire your design staff.
I love how the Blazers doesn't say Portland; it just says Oregon on the front of it. Oh, dude, the Nets one looks awful. Does it
That
have
New
Nets
Jersey or
in
Brooklyn?
legit? Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you guys pull up the Brooklyn Nets city jersey, I thought they had Nets in parentheses. Like it legit looks like they got it in parentheses. Like what are they thinking? But no, I don't know. I thought the Hornets one looked all right because I'm not been a huge fan of some of the jerseys they've been pumping out lately. I wish they'd go back to the old school ones in Charlotte. But it's a big deal these days with jersey sales, as we can see. That's how Oregon built up their college football program, and it's a big deal these days to how everybody looks. So I was just curious what you guys thought about some of these jerseys coming out, kind of becoming the new NBA, getting rid of the old stuff, so to speak.
Well, I think it goes to show NBA's influence on culture. I mean, we saw that this year. We saw the power they held, with the whole the movement and what happened there. And I think it just goes to show you, like, I mean, NBA is not just about basketball. It's about culture. It's about influence. You got young guys who are loving these jerseys now. I mean, used to growing up, we bought them just to hang them on the wall, behind me. Now we buy them, to wear them, and it's just a different culture. And I think it speaks to the influence guys like Kobe have had, guys like LeBron have had. Even going back to Yao Ming, with China's influence. I mean, he had a lot of influence when it came to the NBA. So I think it just says a lot to what they're doing.
Yeah, see, that's where I just feel like some people don't know basketball because one of the most popular players in China is Kyrie Irving, and it's like, man, come on,
yeah,
come on, son.
Yeah.
They're still watching and1 videos in China because that's how they think basketball is supposed to be played by Kyrie. So I don't know. Hey, jumping topics here. Let's talk a little college basketball. I know that we haven't had a ton so far. We're already seeing situations where teams are having to halt practices or they're having to quit games because of the stupid virus. I don't want to go too far into that because I'll get fired from my own show if I start talking too much about the virus.
That's right.
So what we've seen so far are upsets. I mean, the whole season, you guys got to be on upset alert. We saw Virginia lose to San Francisco. Kentucky got upset by Richmond. And what I'm seeing, guys, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, what we're going to have this year are veteran teams making a bigger difference than the Blue Bloods. The Kentuckys, the Dukes, and even Carolina this year, they're bringing in a lot of five-star talent, a lot of guys who are, they're going to go on to the NBA someday. But what we're going to see, in my opinion, you're going to see veteran teams, guys with seniors and juniors who have been in the system for a while. Those are the teams that are going to be pushing for conference championships. They're going to be pushing in if March Madness happens. Those are the people that are going to be pushing for it because what we're already seeing is practices being halted, games being postponed. There wasn't a real preseason for these guys. So it's going to be the veterans who have I think the best chances of winning it all. What do you guys have?
What I would say is this, and I don't know that it's the Blue Bloods coming in, per se, as much as I think is what we're seeing in college football is having an influence in college basketball. The NCAA in college football is having to make a lot of changes on the fly. We see it with the ACC, championship game, Notre Dame, because of a cancellation game. They're automatically, because of the record, going to the ACC championship. They've already waived the six win minimum. So I think that for college basketball, they're able to follow what football is doing logistically and know that, hey, there's a chance that we may not have conference championships. There's a chance we may not have, these guaranteed wins in our conference. Like a Richmond would really run the table in their conference. They've got to make every game count. So you've got these guys like Richmond going out there and playing unbelievable ball. San Francisco playing unbelievable ball. Texas came out, even though they're a ranked team. I think they were 17 or 18 up against a 14th North Carolina. Played really good ball against Carolina, and so I think that what these teams are seeing is this may be our last showing. This may be our last warm up for the NBA draft. This may be our only game before the tournament. We don't know.
So they're playing every game like it's their last one.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what you're seeing as a trend. Kentucky tends to lately always have a rough preseason and come out in the latter part.
Because they're so young. Those guys have been together for 5 minutes.
Right. And we haven't had the preseason like we wanted. We haven't seen the script. I mean, the first chance these guys are getting is really just now starting.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you see more than anything. And people just scared, are we going to be able to play the season? I don't know.
Well, the season's like less than 2 weeks old, so it's kind of
Yeah.
understandable that some of these guys are going to struggle. Some of these teams are going to have problems, but I just it's just one of those things where I just feel like because of the way things are, that it's gonna be the veteran teams that are gonna have the best chances of doing it all because of that. So we will see how college is gonna go. I'll be honest with you guys. I am truly hoping that we will have March Madness this year.
Right. Yeah.
I hope that we can figure out something. If anything, I'm hoping that these teams will learn from the NBA bubble that, hey, just get everybody together in one spot and just figure it out. If you got to take everybody to Disney again and you got to play it in those 3 arenas, or you figure out something else, you've got to do something like that, because I don't think it's healthy for sports. I don't think it's healthy for just society in general, just to continually just shut things down and just avoid things.
Yeah. And
That's
I tell you what, and most importantly, it's not healthy for my fantasy football league. I can tell you that up front. Like, it is killing my season, and I don't know when to bench people and when to play them. I'm just going to say that up front.
That is actually true right now.
There's a big game coming up, I believe next Tuesday, Carolina and Iowa. Iowa is playing some really good ball right now. Carolina, I was watching that game the other day with my son, and we were talking about it. He looked at me, he said, "Why do we always stink in the first half and play second half ball?" I said, "That's been the last 3 seasons, my son." I said, "We can never quite come back in the second half." We almost did. There's that. I don't think Carolina will win against Iowa. Man, Iowa.
Luka Garza is going to be a first-round
put
pick.
up 30 points again, and the guy can go inside and out. I really see Baylor and Iowa as kind of my top 2 teams, even over Gonzaga. Baylor's looking strong, and I
think
that's where I'm
Gonzaga
at.
lost as well.
No, they came close to losing.
Yeah,
they pulled it out.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, they're undefeated. Yeah, they're number 1 right now. Baylor's 2, Iowa's 3. And so, like I said, when I saw a glimpse of Baylor the other night, I saw a glimpse of Gonzaga, and Baylor is looking strong. And
are they still running that fancy zone defense that they play?
I didn't catch that, but I could tell you they were doing some run and gun, some up and down, that Houston Rockets style stuff.
Well, then that'll flop.
Yeah, well,
if it's Houston Rockets style, hey, it's going to look great till the very end, and then they're going to choke.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think the Carolina game, Ben, you referenced earlier what our thoughts are on Carolina this year. So, just my opinion, Roy is unbelievable. I don't know what it is, but he can coach a big man. He can coach a big man, but for some reason, he cannot coach a 2-guard or a 3. In my opinion, he can get a scoring point guard all day long. He's put Kobe White in the NBA, Ty Lawson, Raymond Felton, all these guys. He's helped them get to the pros, but for some reason, it's really hard for him to get the other guys there.
Yeah, this is the biggest Carolina team I've seen in a while. They got some big old boys. I'm hoping Walker's going to develop, a lot more. But yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really thought about that.
But I mean, his guard coaching, everybody's got limitations where they struggle. Like Mike Krzyzewski, he can't develop a big man. None of his big guys, they come in, what he's doing right now, he's recruiting talent, but when they leave, those big men, they're not crazy good. They're 4s or 5s. Most of the guys that they've had coming out of Duke that have been unbelievable, like the Jason Tatum and Luol Deng, and those are 3s that were playing 4s. And what he was doing was he was spreading the floor and letting them give drive-bys. Right. He was not, giving them post-ups. Granted, he's coaching for the new NBA style. Roy Williams is kind of a throwback he's the only program that I know of that still runs 2 bigs at all times.
And I love it.
Yeah, and he won't go away from it. And I think that's part of our problem on offense, is that we do bog down the middle because we still are running the 2. We're not running like most college and NBA programs are running a 4 out, 1 in, whereas Roy's running 3 out, 2 in, and you put a guy like Leaky Black on the floor who's he's a Swiss Army knife. He's like Theo Pinson, where he can play D, pass, and do stuff, but he's not a great shooter yet. He's improving. He's just not a great shooter yet. So defenses aren't scared of him. So they're doubling down. I mean, we saw that constantly in the Stanford game where they were constantly, as soon as the ball was passed into the post, it was a double down that fast. Wherever it came from, they were doubling down, taking away, because that's our strong suit right now is the post. So if we can't,
because we can't shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, he recruited it this year.
Yeah,
he recruited it. So you got Love can shoot. RJ Davis is definitely a shooter. Those guys, they got to get comfortable. They've played a total of 4 games in college basketball. They're just not comfortable yet. You got
but Carolina teams of the past. This is where I was at. Carolina teams of the past. When you go back to Dante Calabria time, there has always been a strong, like you're saying, guard play, which I agree with. But where we were also feared, we could go inside, but we always kept defensive guessing, because do we play, the 3-point line because these guys can flat out shoot the ball, or do we guard the inside? We have become so one-dimensional in our slide the last several years that the only thing we can do is go inside. And so you're exactly right. Stanford almost beat Carolina. It should have never been that close of a game.
Right.
But why almost be? Because they doubled down inside. And when that's not happening, we start throwing up stuff from the outside, and they're not going in. And
yeah,
so
I mean, it's like we really don't know if this is going to go in or not.
Yeah, there's no confidence. Yeah.
But I mean, you think about that Psycho T team, which was one of my favorite Carolina teams. I just love Psycho T. They had who'd they have on the outside? They had Danny Green,
Ellington, Danny Green. Those were your shooters.
Right, and you didn't even know, like, before, like, watching that team, you're like, oh man, this kid could shoot pretty good, but I mean, he wasn't getting that many touches, but still, like, we had that factor where it's like, oh crap, if you double us inside, we're gonna hit, and then now it's like,
don't shoot it,
but
don't shoot.
In all fairness to what you're saying, that Psycho T team, that was a veteran team.
Oh yeah.
What we're seeing across college basketball is that these guys aren't staying, and they're not staying around.
Done at best.
Yeah, and Ellington, when he left, he and Lawson both, I think, were juniors. Danny Green was a junior when they all left. Frazier and Hansbrough, they were seniors. I mean, that was every time Roy Williams has a veteran team, he makes a very strong push or wins it all. When he's got these young teams, that's when you're seeing them struggle, because I think his system, it's not intricate at all. Let's just admit it. It's a very basic system. Everybody knows what they're going to run. They're going to run the elevator screen at the top. They're pretty much pounded inside. It reminds me somewhat of the triangle offense, where if you stay in it for a couple of years, you're amazing. But if you're just coming in, you're struggling to get through it. And so I really believe that it's going to take some of these guys staying. But the problem is nobody wants to stay anymore, because John Henson's dad said it once: the faster you can get to that second contract, the better you are. The younger you are getting to that second contract, the more money you're going to make. So that has become the entire mantra of this generation, is how quickly can I get to that pro level? How quickly can I get to that next contract? And I don't blame them. We've seen this in every sport. You've got to maximize on your physical capabilities as fast as you can, but it does take a toll on the overall sport. And that's the difference between team sports and individual society these days. And so I'm hoping Roy can put it all together. We can have a really strong season. I don't want to see us losing to Duke again. All right. That's all I care about. If anything else, I just want to beat Duke.
Yeah.
Not that I'm biased.
I think the Iowa game will be a big test to see, because, the boys are going to get down. How will they hold up? If it's a close game and we lose, I think it's a win for Carolina. If it's a blowout, I think we know real quick how this season's going to go. Well, these boys are going to stay in and fight, because with a team like Duke, you got to stay in and fight. And, last year we lost the buzzer again, and that was a young Carolina team that should have won that game.
Right.
And then just after that Duke loss, they could not bounce back last year.
Right. I mean, and I feel like I don't know how y'all boys feel. Y'all were up there. Y'all were, you get the vibe and you get the feel of the Carolina basketball way more than I do down here in Mississippi. We're god awful at. I mean, Mississippi State's like the best we got. But anyway, the question I have for you guys, I feel like they're way better than they were last year. Just straight up.
All right, so I'll be honest with you.
Let me hear it.
I'm not a Cole Anthony guy whatsoever. Text in a text message the other day. You asked what we thought about Cole Anthony. I don't like Cole Anthony, and I think, and it's nothing to do with him personally. I just think his style of play and the way he did it. I think he was more of a hindrance.
Well, it wasn't Carolina basketball, right?
No, well, and I know that he was injured part of the year, and I know that as Chris made the point last week that the roster he had around him was not nearly as good as what we usually have at Carolina. But it still felt like he was pushing too much, and it felt like it was more about him than it should have been. So I wasn't too upset about him leaving. Now, look, so you lost Anthony last year. Brandon, he graduated. He was a decent shooter, but he just wasn't enough to carry a team. So you lose those guys, and you're starting over. Your backcourt starting over because obviously we're starting 2 freshmen right now. I think that by the end of the season, we will be light years better than what we were last year. We've got some serious bigs coming off the bench. I mean, we've had a tough run with injuries. Sterling Manley had played like half a season at Carolina. It showed some promise, and I think his career's over. Right now, Roy's just giving him a contract to honor him. He gave what was his name? Jeremiah Francis. Jeremiah Francis blew out both knees before he made it to Carolina, and Roy just honored the scholarship offer he gave him. He couldn't play worth a flip. Anthony, he can't – was not Anthony. What's his name? The other guy. I can't think of his name.
Talking about Andrew? Who are you talking about, the other guard?
The other guard. He's still injured. The guy that got out of Virginia. I can't think of his name now. Oh, that's going to bother me. But these guys, they can't stay healthy. So it's like 3 guys that he's recruited recently that were supposed to be serious contributors. They can't even get on the floor. That was a major factor last year. And so between injuries and just Anthony wasn't playing great, and then you didn't have a lot of talent on the team. That's why they were what they were last year. This year, when you bring in 6 guys, 4 or 5 of them are 5-star guys, and then you have another guy that's 4-star. I mean, we've got the majority of the guys that he recruited this year are going to be 2 to 3 year guys at a minimum, but we'll see.
I like Walker Kessler, man. I don't know if I'm just traditional. I don't know. I like him.
You can't argue with 7'1". He's 7'1", and he can stretch the floor. How do you argue with that? I mean, that guy's got a future. It's just how long does he stay? Because I think Baycott's obviously Garrison Brooks is going to graduate.
Yeah,
I think Baycott is doing everything he can to get good enough to jump this year to the NBA.
Right.
And then it's, can we hold on to Sharp and Kessler? That's what it comes down to.
Who was our the freshman point guard? Was it Kelly?
Caleb Love.
Caleb Love, yeah. And if Love has the game that he had the first 2 games against Texas, they were looking at a 4-0 Carolina.
Yeah.
He had a rough game against Texas. It showed.
Right.
And that was the difference maker. And so I do think there's a light for Carolina to go up against a ranked opponent, the Bigs of Texas, and really just have one of your star players who just had a bad game and lose by 2 at the buzzer. I think they're on the way up. I do agree.
Well, regardless, man, I'm just glad we got some college basketball happening this year.
I will say shout out to Isaiah Livers. The guy had a chance to go against his coach and transfer out of Michigan. One of the things we talked about was Juwan Howard. And you and I were talking about this earlier, John, that I'm glad to see a guy stand up for senior leadership and say up front where other guys have character-wise said, I can't believe my coach did that. I'm transferring, whatever.
For those who are unaware of what Chris is referencing, there was a confrontation between Juwan Howard, first-year coach at Michigan, and one of his best players, Isaiah Livers, where on the sideline during the timeout, they literally were almost nose-to-nose screaming at each other about something. I don't even know what it was about, but you could read Livers' face talking about who are you talking to? Who are you talking about? And Juwan Howard looked at him and said, I'm talking to you. I'm talking about you. And Livers went right back at him. Now, it's exactly what Chris is saying. That is usually the situation where you see whoever it is, they're gone. I literally thought Juwan Howard lasted a week at Michigan and he was going to get fired because he's getting into a fight with his star player. But apparently Livers is a guy who's actually got a spine and said that I'm going to stick it out and everything's good. And that's just Coach bringing the best out of me.
Just being a coach. And so I commend him for that, man. That's a great character. I like it. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out. And Livers, I'm cheering for you, man. I'm cheering for you in that regard. Not even a Michigan fan because I'm a Carolina guy. Time out.
Exactly. We love Chris Webber. What are you talking about?
Yes.
I am a huge Chris Webber fan. Get that technical. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys. We hope that you enjoyed the show today. Chris, hit him with your old faithful.
Hey, Ben Smith, always great to have you, man. It's always good to catch up with you from down in Mississippi, man.
Mississippi.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. That's exactly right.
Hey, God bless you guys, all those that are out there, man. God allows us to do what we do. We're thankful for that.
All right, guys. Have a good one.